Hey, this is Scott and I've got the ZCam E2 here, and today I just got in the mail the Smallrig cage for the E2, so we're going to go ahead and unbox that, take a look at what's in here and how it works. So as you can see here, all I really have on here at the moment is this NATO rail on the side, so I can attach this rosette wooden side handle here and take that off really quickly. But I want to be able to attach things like a monitor on top more easily because this screw on the top here is really close to this top screen, so it's kind of difficult to attach a whole lot on there without blocking that screen, or I don't know, it kind of feels like I'm going to scratch up that screen or mess it up if I do anything too much on that top screw there. So I wanted to get the cage so that way I can have a little bit more ease of attaching things in the top, a top handle, a monitor, as well as a handle on the side and other things as well. Just having the cage is going to give me a lot more versatility in how I can rig this up. But what I really like about the Smallrig cage, from what I've seen online, is that it comes in pieces and you don't have to use it all. So if you don't want to use the bottom, for example, which I think this has an Arca Swiss plate on the bottom, so if you don't want to have that on there and you want to use a different plate just straight on the bottom of the camera, you can do that. Or you can only use one side or both sides. I'm not sure exactly how much you can really mess with that while keeping the cage still stable on here, but I am very interested to see exactly how that works. But I like the kind of versatility that you have there, especially without having to necessarily use the bottom plate on here, which you might not want to. But yeah, it also seemed to fit the body of this camera very snugly, and this is a very compact small camera, so I wanted to be able to maintain that as much as possible. And from what I've seen online, this cage does not really add to that a whole lot. So let's get into the box and just see what's in here. Before that, I'll just take off this NATO rail because I will no longer need that. So let's get that out of the way. Okay, and I still have the Smallrig bag that this came with right here. So let's go ahead and put that back in the bag so I can keep everything organized there. Put the camera aside and let's open up this box. So I've already got ahead and cut the tape, so don't mind that. But I haven't actually opened this yet. So it all comes in one bag, and I can see right away there are tons of little screws in there. So this will be fun to kind of figure out exactly where everything goes. But let's open this up and see how many parts we really have in here. Put that bag off to the side. So first up, this has a NATO rail on it, so I assume it's going to go on one of the sides. It has a little clamp on the back for that USB, so if you're using the USB on here, you can clamp that down to keep it in there tightly. Here's another NATO rail, so that will go on the other side, I assume. And yeah, that'll line up right there, and it has this little extra area here where it's cut out around the input jacks that you have here, so that way you can maximize the space on the side without blocking any of those ports. So that's cool. This is, I assume, the top part here, and yeah, I'm really happy to see that. Looks really form-fitting there. So it just goes right around everything on the top of the camera without blocking the screen, without blocking the record button, and it really holds tight to actually that body of the camera, so it doesn't add a lot of bulk to it, which is really nice. If you look at it from the front, you can see here that it really kind of maintains that form factor pretty well. So really good job on this. I mean, even this might be hard to see here, but even the shape of these side rods here is kind of cut out around just the shape of the body. So this is really fitting as snugly as possible to the body of the camera without adding a lot of bulk. And that's a huge part of this to me, is not adding a lot of bulk to this, because this is such a compact camera as it is, and I want to keep that as much as possible. So last up is the bottom plate here, and you can see here this has I believe it's an Arca Swiss plate on the bottom. But it doesn't look too thick, so actually if you use this bottom plate and you put another tripod plate right onto here, I don't think that'll actually be too awkward. It'll have that little gap, because you have the double plate situation going on. But if you wanted to put a Manfrotto plate on here or something like that, I actually don't think it will be as bad as I expected, because this is pretty thin here. So also it's cut out here so that way it'll fit again right along the body of the camera, and it does have this extra pin here as well as 2 screws and some rubber mats, so this will really hold it tight. And there's these little bumps here, the little tiny, I don't know what you call them, not feet, but it has these little bumps on the bottom of the body here, so this is also cut out to leave space for that so it doesn't fit awkwardly. So that'll go right onto the bottom of the body right there. And yeah, again, fits very, very snugly. Really, really looks like it's just part of the camera. Really good job here with the design of these parts and how they fit the camera. Next up, you do have some other parts here. This part is for if you're using an adapter, you can have this on the front of the cage to support that adapter, and it's got a couple of holes in here that I believe will be able to screw right into the body of the adapter. I don't have mine yet, it's on its way. I got a Metabones adapter, so hopefully this will work well with that. I think it works with the Comlight adapter that other people are using as well, but yeah, that'll go right on the front of the cage just to support that adapter and get, you know, a little bit more of a snug fit. I have some micro four thirds lenses as well, so I'm not sure if I'm going to use this. I might use it but not screw it into the adapter because I don't want that permanency. But if you do always use an adapter, it's nice to have that as well. It kind of makes it just, you know, one part of the body. I also like that they included this, which I believe this is the clamp for the HDMI cable on top here. And then of course you got a bunch of screws and some Allen wrenches included here. So let's just get all of that out of there and hope that nothing falls on the floor as I'm getting this set up. By the way, if you're wondering about this guitar pick, this is what I was using. I had the NATO rail on here and it was really hard to get my finger in to open this CFast card door. So I used this guitar pick to just kind of slide in there and pry it open. You know, it might be a useful tool to have. I'm not sure if it's going to be the same issue with this cage on there, if it's going to be hard to get your finger in there, but a guitar pick worked pretty good to solve that problem. Just slide it in there and pry this open. You know, some people might just rip this door off altogether because obviously this is not a weather shield body, but yeah, the guitar pick worked as well. Before putting this on, I just wanted to point out that this top part of this cage does have these little tabs here that will kind of lock into the sides here, so that gives an extra point of attachment, and I believe you can screw these together as well, but you know, it's like a double point of attachment there with only one screw, but it'll hold really, really steady together. So although this is a multi-part cage, it seems like it will be really, really solid. So starting off with the top part here, this will attach obviously with just this one screw in the center here, and there is a recessed area for that, so it's not going to stick out, of course. But let's leave that a little bit loose now because there is a little bit of play in there. So just to make sure everything is lined up as much as possible, we'll leave that out. This side of the little clamp here is going to be, you know, for the USB. So we'll put that on the right side of the body. So that way that lines up all right. Just turn this over to the side. I'm not sure how well you can see this in the camera, but it looks like this top hole doesn't really line up with the top hole on the body. So you're only going to use this middle and bottom screw hole to attach this to the actual body. And this top is just going to be somewhere you can attach something else on the outside of the cage. Then we'll switch over to the other side. Of course, this is again the same story where you're going to be using the middle and bottom holes, and the top thread is meant to attach stuff from the outside of the cage, not to attach to the body. So now of course I haven't tightened down the top section yet, but before I tighten down that middle screw, I'm just going to go ahead and attach this to the two side parts to make sure that everything is lined up as much as possible, and then I will tighten that final screw on the top down. So you got these kind of long skinny screws that will go down right into here, and use the smaller Allen wrench, which is of course included. Now that that's all solidly together, let's go ahead and tighten down this final screw on the top here. And that is what I would consider probably the minimum you would want to use on this cage. But again, you don't necessarily have to use all of these parts. So that's pretty cool that you can kind of pick and choose how you want this set up. But just for now, let's go ahead and attach that bottom plate. And that is now the kind of base of the cage, not including the HDMI clamp or the adapter clamp. And yeah, it looks pretty good. Like I said, it doesn't really add a lot of size or weight to the body. So I really like that it fits really, really snugly. You get NATO rails on both sides, so I can go ahead and take that wooden NATO handle. When you're sliding on something like this, I have this kind of quick NATO rail clamp here. Just be aware that the back section, or I don't know, it's not necessarily the back, I guess, but the part with this little red clamp here is fatter than this other section. And because of this little extra piece here that's holding the USB clamp, this is going to be too fat to fit on here. So you're going to want to go ahead and turn this around so that way that little red part is at the front. Let me do that real quick. And now that the thinner part of this NATO clamp is at the back, it'll be able to slide on here, no problem. And clamp that down. And now I have that right on the side of the body. So that's really nice to be able to just slide that off and on really quick. But that's how that'll work on there. And of course, if you have a left side handle, you could go ahead and attach that on here as well, or anything else that uses a NATO attachment. And you do have a bunch of screw threads as well if you want to attach something differently. But let's go ahead and take a look at this HDMI clamp now. So again, this might be a little bit tricky to see, but this HDMI clamp has this extra little piece here that is going to fit into this kind of cutaway on the actual clamp itself. And that is going to slide back and forth to tighten down how you need it on the HDMI clamp, depending on the size of your HDMI cable. So when you screw that into the body, it actually screws into the back of the body of the camera right on the side of the HDMI port. There are a couple little screw holes. You're going to screw that through that extra little part, and then you can just loosen that screw and slide this back and forth depending on how tight you need it. So the slots on the back of this, you can slide this over a little bit left and right. So I think the best way, at least for me, that I can see to actually figure out just where to line it up when you tighten it down is to actually put your HDMI cable in there. And this is a pretty fat HDMI cable, but it still does fit in there. So just going to put this in and then tighten down the right screw, because that is the one that does not affect how tight this actually clamps onto the HDMI cable. But push this clamp right up against the side of that HDMI cable, so that way it's going to have the potential to be really tight when I do tighten that other side down. This part here will be able to slide a bit. So this is, again, a pretty big HDMI cable, so it doesn't need to close that much. But as you tighten this down, it's going to, it's angled, so the more tight you put it, the more it's going to slide over. So it's going to kind of tighten down on the actual HDMI clamp, pushing in this way as you tighten the screw down with, your Allen wrench. So now it's just a matter of customizing this cage, building it out to, put a monitor on here. Maybe even a left side handle would be really good for handheld work, because, get your hands out from the center of the body a little bit, and that will help with, the steadiness when you're handheld. It's just a really, really, really nice cage. They did a really good job of thinking this out, so that way you can really, use only the parts that you need. If you don't want the bottom, for example, that's separate from the rest of the cage, but it fits the body of the camera really, really snugly. And I think that's a key thing in a body this small, is that you want to keep it small, you want to keep it unobtrusive, but this gives you a lot of flexibility compared to the just bare body itself in terms of mounting things like, the side handle, mounting something up on top of here for a top handle or a monitor without having to worry about messing up that screen so much. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them down below, and as always, I will do my best to get back to you. If you like this video or found it helpful, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, subscribe to see more in the future, and as always, thank you for watching.